Listen in on Mondays, 8 Eastern Time on Revolution Radio for Journeys with JP. With a variety of guests, each giving their perspective on their journey into the now. Join me and my guests Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio Studio B.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jer Bear on a special show with a guest. And you probably all know her later. You'll just figure it out, but I'm just going to leave it as a surprise right now. And I'd like to say this is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. We are listener supported. And if you enjoy the show, please come into www.freedomslips.com and hit the donate button over on the left side of the chat. And join us in chat if you'd like, please. On that behalf, I'd like to say that again, this is Gerber, and I want to help my friend promote her story, and you listeners out there and probably my chat mates, and we're going to show her the story, and she's going to explain her story that she's written. She's a young semi-pro writer trying to get published. This is one platform we're going to use to step it up for her, and I hope you enjoy it. So on that behalf, I'd like to introduce American Android and say hello. Hello.
Hey, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
Hi. How are you?
Been pretty good. It's been a while.
Okay. You want to just jump in and give a scoop about where we're at, and as you tell them about I'll place the link in chat for you.
Sure. Well, a lot of you guys might know me as Alicia from Arkansas, around Revolution Radio. It's probably been, I come and go every now and then, but I've been around since the radio station pretty much started. Let's see, last year I graduated college, got my degree in teaching, been doing that for the last year. I started writing about 9 months ago, and this particular story that I'm going to talk about is actually the first one I wrote. It's called Tumbling Down the Rabbit Hole. My pen name is American Android. It was actually recently nominated for an annual award that recognizes supernatural stories. The story is what is called a fan fiction written story. It's free to the public. Basically means it's an offshoot story of a TV show, and in this case it's True Blood, which is a TV show about vampires and other supernatural races. The story first begins with a girl who's a huge fan of the TV show. Now, if you were a fan of the show, you would know how badly it ended, and this story attempts to rectify the mistakes made in that show. In Chapter 1, the main character of Tumbling Down the Rabbit Hole, basically what she's doing is watching the last episode of True Blood, and she becomes disillusioned and outraged. She proceeds to drive down to the studio and give the creator of the show a piece of her mind, and when she does that, she's assaulted and tossed through a portal that leads to her beloved True Blood universe. And from there she goes on a huge adventure to change events in the show and make things right, as she puts it. But she finds out some truths about herself and her reality, which pretty much brings everything she knows and believes into question. She makes some friends along
American Android, can you check your volume and just raise it a little bit? You're just a little soft or a little.
Sure. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Did you just get a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, cool. I think you're okay now. I've just got somebody checking in. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but...
Oh, that's fine. So, basically she makes friends along the way. some dangerous enemies. She falls in love with two different people, which are both vampires. The story is very controversial, and if you do read it, it'll probably be one of the most rated R stories you ever read. And the reason it's so controversial is because she starts a relationship with two men, the three of them together, and there's quite a bit of graphic scenes in it. But it's not just about that. There's events in the story that'll make you cry, make you scream, make you pee your pants from laughing so hard. It's really a roller coaster of emotions, and I've kind of used this story to learn how to tug at readers' emotions in different directions, kind of like practice, learning to write, getting better at it, so I can move on and publish my own original stories.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
So this story here, you told me earlier, how many, you've got it almost completed?
Yes.
And it has like how many words and how many chapters now?
It's got 40 chapters, and it's it's about 160,000 words, which is bigger than a Harry Potter book. It's the biggest story I've ever written.
How long have you been writing it?
I started writing this story in October of last year.
Oh, okay.
And so I even have an editor for it who edits it. Several editors, in fact. Leah Price. She's my main editor for this story. And she basically just goes through and makes sure there's no errors and whatnot.
Right on. So she's already kind of like grafted it, or what do you call it? Did the
It's like kind of like pre-reading it.
Yeah, and checks all the errors and stuff.
Uh-huh.
That's sweet.
Yep.
So tell me about
Okay.
American Android. You want to explain that, Alicia, please?
Sure. I was pretty pleased when I got nominated because I'm such a new writer, and so I really didn't expect that. But I guess the story's really popular because I've had my blog up since January. And by the way, my blog address is americanandroidblog.wordpress.com. And I've had it up since January. It averages about 15,000 hits a month. So,
That's how many?
15,000.
Oh, wow. That's a big. That's some messages, huh?
Yeah.
That's cool. Are they global, or can you tell if they're global, or are they all like in the United States, or can you tell or what?
Yes, I can actually look on the stats page and see where my readers are coming from, what countries. I can see what website they came from, so I can actually look on my blog tomorrow and see if any readers came from freedomslips.com.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, what are the comments these bloggers that are coming into your link have to say?
Let me just open one up.
Go ahead.
Okay, so on my blog, basically people can sign up for it, and they get an update through their email every time I update a chapter, and then they'll come read it. And sometimes they leave me reviews and feedback so I can see what people think about it. And it's really nice to kind of get that immediate feedback, kind of really see how, they felt when they were reading it.
Do they also give you any ideas for
Oh, yeah.
They pump you up, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've taken ideas from readers. They'll leave a remark, and they would say something like, "It's really cool if you did this." And I'm like, wow, that's a really good idea. I'm going to do that, Okay, here,
Okay.
I want to read a comment that someone left.
Shoot, Luke.
On my story. It says, "I felt my heart melting, and I was snorting, not suspecting anything. I mean, when one coins the phrase, I can't say that on air. Okay. No one is expecting that level of a cliffhanger. Now my melted heart feels like it's trying to race out of my chest, and I'm anxiously and mounting devastation. If it wasn't such an awesome story, sigh."
So it's called Going Down the Rabbit Hole. It's about a young lady that's watching this Blood series, right?
Well, it starts out, she's watching the show, then she goes down to the studio to basically gripe out the creator of the show because of the way it ended. And it turns out, is something other, you'll find out, and he tosses her through a portal into another world, and it's the True Blood world.
And that's the rabbit hole.
Yes, and that's the rabbit hole. That's why it's called Tumbling Down the Rabbit Hole. And so she finds herself in this other world surrounded by vampires and werewolves and shapeshifters and demons and everything else.
Very interesting. And it's got a lot of, what does it have? It has a lot of, it's kind of like a...
Explicit scenes in it. Is that what
explicit scenes and language, so it's not PG rated.
No, this is like as rated R as it gets. Okay, here's an example of that. This chapter was like a shower. I was warm and relaxed, and then had a shiver. Then my water ran cold. It was like you flipped a switch in the middle. I seriously made such a sad face. My waiter asked me what was wrong. Really well done, though. Lovely lemon. I mean, I'm still sad and upset and thinking about the temperature change twist 5 hours later. I'm shaking my metaphorical fist and hoping that Godric makes it through. But yeah, good job. So that's one review I got.
We already have...
And that review was on a particular chapter that, like, a lot of people said they cried on.
Oh, yeah, you told me it does affect your emotions. All your emotions, like watching a John Wayne movie.
Yeah.
It's got the... It touches... It brings tears to you sometimes, and it makes you smile. It messes with all your emotions. Zippy7830 knows you. She says, or whoever that is says, "Oh, it's Alicia. I wonder how she's feeling lately."
Oh, yes, because I remember I was really, really sick a while back, and I figured out why I was so sick. Apparently, my office, where my computer is, where I spent all my time writing, had flooded. And I didn't know this, but there was mold growing on the carpet under some furniture. And that was what was making me really, really sick. And when I found it, I moved my office into a different room. And now I'm completely fine. Like, I was so sick, and I was coughing all the time.
Wow.
And it was awful, but...
That was during the winter?
That was, like a month or two ago?
So the room got flooded, and then and then it molded up, huh?
Yeah, I thought I had dried the carpet out really well because I put fans on it and everything, but I guess I didn't get like under the furniture, and so some black mold was on the carpet, and yeah, so that was what was making me so sick there for a while back. Like, I remember I didn't write for like a whole month. Because I was...
What were you, like, nauseous or...
I was really tired all the time, and I was coughing like crazy. Like, I was coughing so bad, I was literally going through like a bag of cough drops a day.
Wow. And no clue until you kind of put one and one together, huh?
Yeah, and then I figured that out. I actually moved everything out of that office into a different room, and... within 2 weeks, the coughing stopped. I felt fine. Everything was good.
Right on.
Anyway.
So after that, you started kicking butt again and writing?
Oh, yeah. After that, I started kicking butt again and writing. I'm going to read you an excerpt from this story here in a minute. But I don't know if I should do that now or if I should tell you about... because I have other stories, too, that I've written.
You just feel what you feel, and if please, the chatmates in chat, if you got any questions, put them in large caps.
Yeah, I love questions.
And then in a little while, if you guys want to call in, you guys can call in. But right now, I'd like to get some questions out of chat and go from there. So go ahead and carry on, Miss Alicia.
Okay, so I have three other stories, and I know one of them the listeners will probably really think is cool, because one of them, and I just started that one, it's basically about a girl. So one of her friends dies, so she goes to this other realm to find out a way to resurrect him, like some kind of magic. But anyway, back on Earth, time is passing by really super slow in this other realm, and back on Earth, time is going by really fast. And again, this has vampires in it, because I like writing about vampires. I also like writing about dystopian government stuff, so I included it in this story. So basically what happens back on Earth is 1,000 years pass while she's in this other realm. and the world changes. The government becomes really corrupt. They install all this facial recognition software. Everybody has to have papers. In the meantime, Mars gets terraformed as well. I haven't got to that part, but this is where the story
So is she
is
out?
going.
Is she on Earth or?
She is in a different realm. She is a fairy. So she's in the fairy realm. I know that sounds kind of stupid.
The fairy, four-dimensional,
Yes.
all kinds of creatures.
Yeah, well, but yeah, I know that sounds kind of silly, but I don't know. I like writing about that stuff.
That's all
But
good.
anyway,
It's
so
all good.
I included all the dystopian government stuff because I've spent so many years researching that type of stuff, and I find it interesting. So I kind of included that in this, and I think in chapter 3 there's a speech by the president.
There's a what, huh?
There's a speech by the president on the news.
That you kind of ad lib in there.
Yeah.
Is it a president that's fictional?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that one only has like 4 chapters. Like I just kind of started it, and it's not really popular with my readers because most of my readers are women because I write romance and they're not really into that type of story. So
Right.
I kind of been focusing on these others. Another one that's actually my favorite is called Whispers on the Wind, and it's about, again, a vampire. It's a 2,000-year-old vampire, and him and the girl get whisked to the past 2,000 years to ancient Rome. So it's like a historical fiction. And so she doesn't know how to speak the language, and when they're whisked to the past, he somehow melds with his human self before he was turned into a vampire. So, and he's been a vampire for 2,000 years. So now he's a human.
He's whisked back to the Roman Empire, huh?
Yeah, and he was a Roman slave as well. He was actually a Gaul from the French coast by the British Channel. His homelands were conquered by the Roman legions, and he was taken a slave as like a 10-year-old child. And so in the story, he's like 18.
Okay.
But anyway, I really found out that I love to write historical fictions. And so this is kind of sci-fi-y too, because I get to include all the time paradoxes and stuff like that, and I have to try to explain it to readers within the context of the story without confusing anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And also make it, within the laws of physics, even though technically time travel isn't within the laws of physics. I gotta somehow make it where it makes sense.
Yeah, I think that wouldn't be that hard. Use CERN.
Oh.
That's a big talk right now, CERN.
But anyway, that story's not near as long, and it's almost finished too. It's only got 3 chapters left, and it's only gonna end up being...
My mom always bought the Reader's Digest back in the 60s. Is that still a way or a pathway to try to get exposed to a publisher?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. The way I plan, I actually met an award-winning author the other day, because I'm a teacher, and we had one come and speak at the school to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Her name, well, I don't know if I should say it on the radio, but anyway, she talked about the process, with literary agents and publishing. And
Pathways to get noticed or etc.
There's actually a yearly thing that you can do. It's called let me think if I can remember this right.
Publishers Awards?
No, it's like the Writers Month, the National Writers Month. That's it. And it's a challenge to write 50,000 words in 1 month, in 30 days. She wrote her first book doing that. And so she got it published and everything.
And she did that right prior to that contest or whatever, and did it and got number 1, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Was it related to Reader's Digest or no?
No.
Okay.
And see, like this story I'm writing, like Tumbling Down the Rabbit Hole, it is a fan fiction, so it's free to the public because it's based off the characters on a TV show, so I can't publish it. But there's many writers who have actually turned their fan fiction, changed like the characters' names, and turned it into an original story. For example, 50 Shades of Grey was a Twilight fan fiction story. She changed the names and had that published, and now there's a movie made out of it.
Which is called?
50 Shades of Grey.
Okay.
Have you heard of that movie?
No, I'm green about that. I honestly, no. But she came to your campus and enthused you a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it was like really interesting meeting such a like renowned author who has published so many books and won so many prestigious awards, and to really hear her story about how she got started and how she wrote, like she showed a picture of like a huge stack of like 10 novels she wrote and sent to her literary agent. And then she showed us a letter that he sent back saying that he cannot submit her subpar work to a publisher. And so that
Cannot submit what?
Her subpar work to a publisher.
Meaning
He can't submit meaning that her stories aren't good enough to be submitted to a publisher. And she has spent like 10 years writing those stories.
Was she already on the scene already?
No. I mean,
okay.
I think she had a few children's books published.
So
no.
it actually was 10 years after, and then that letter to that publisher,
Yeah,
and then turned down, then things started to open up for her?
Well, I mean, she said she quit for like a year, and then she came across the National Writers Month, which occurs every year in November. And so she did that, and then she wrote another novel. She didn't hit her 50,000 words. She hit 40,000, and she sent that back to her literary agent. And he replied saying, it's pretty good. Maybe if you revise it and rewrite the whole thing, then I'll consider sending it to a publisher. So that was better than completely rejecting it outright. So she rewrote it, and then it got sent to a publisher, and she got signed on with one of the 4 big publishing houses in the United States.
Still keeping it at 40,000 words?
Uh-huh.
Or...
Well, I mean, it may have increased by then, which, that's a pretty good sized book. I mean,
right.
Not all books are the size of Tumbling Down the Rabbit Hole, which is 150,000 words. That'll take you several days to read.
Compared to what was a Harry Potter novel? One movie is a novel, right?
Yes.
That's how I do it.
Yes.
So your book next to the Harry Potter movie novel, they've got, 5, 6, 7, 8 books about it, but your book next to the Harry Potter movie would be an inch and a half thicker.
Yeah. Well, see, Tumbling Down the Rabbit Hole actually has 3 story arcs in it, which all kind of intertwine together.
Like the Star Wars thing, trilogies.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to look up how many words the Harry Potter novels has. Let's see, there's 7. Okay, here we go. The first book is 85,000 words, so that gives you a comparison to Tumbling Down... No, I'm sorry, 76,000 words. That gives you a comparison to Tumbling Down the Rabbit Hole, which is over 160,000 words.
And what was that first novel called?
Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it say how many novels she did with that?
She did 7.
7. That became movies, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's done with her, but that's an idea, ladies and gentlemen, of this novel that American Android is trying to get out to the public and get her feet wet. So
yeah, I'd like to get readers from other. I know it caters to women, but I've actually asked men to read it, and they really loved it. So I know a lot of men don't actually go out and read fan fiction because it's just not really a man thing to do.
We'd rather be fishing or having a cold beer.
But I've asked men to read it, and they've signed up to my blog before and messaged me every chapter and say what a great chapter it is, and that's their favorite story of mine that I write. So I know that if they read it, they're gonna like it. Well, hopefully some of them will at least.
I gotta go like what you said. Text to speech. There's a link for that. And if you listeners out there want to use that link and then copy and paste the whole that whole chapter that will show you, and then you paste that into convert text to speech, and it comes out all on audio. Mm-hmm. That's the way I get into it, because I have an issue with reading for a long time.
Yeah,
makes me just drowsy.
I actually edit my chapters that way. I'll paste it into that, and I'll read it along, because a lot of times when you're reading, you read so fast, you might miss an error. So I'll paste it in that, and I'll do the voice speech, and I will let it read it while I also read along, and I find all my errors usually that way, and my editors don't have a lot of work to do.
Okay, so going back to this long novel, what would enthuse the listeners to read it? Can you bio it or break it down for me?
Like, you want me to tell, like, you want me
Well,
to tell
yeah.
you
What enthuses the people that are blogging you about it?
I think that, okay, as a fan of the show, it's kind of like, they can relate to her because she's a fan of the show.
Okay.
And
And all these bloggers are been related to this show series called what? The Blood?
True Blood. Most of my readers are people who were fans of that show.
Oh, and this was on HBO, huh?
Yeah, this was a show on HBO. I guess it stopped airing. The finale aired like a year ago or something like that. It went on for 7 years, and it was just a big disappointment. And so that's the reason that I wrote a story for it, is because I watched that show and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, when it ended,
It's like a soap opera, exactly. You just always have to keep going to it.
Yeah, it was like such a joke when it ended and so badly done. And what's funny about my story is I include the creator of the show. Of course, I change his name because I don't want to get,
I copy.
Yeah. So, he's included throughout the story as like a villain.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's pretty neat because I include him and all my readers know what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's this excerpt of the story that I would like to read, and let me just kind of set this up. I was going to read chapter 1, but I decided not to because it's got so many cuss words in it, and I know that that's not really allowed on the radio.
Explicit language. So
Yeah.
you guys like that stuff out there. I know you listeners like that kind of stuff. So this is right in your moment.
Right. So this
Go ahead.
in this particular chapter, it's not really going to give anything away in the story, but it's kind of like a little bit of an outtake, and it's really short. I was sitting up late one night, and I was thinking about this, and I just had to write it because this particular character in the story, he's a vampire, and he's several thousand years old.
How old?
Several thousand.
Okay.
And when the story started, he was really suicidal and depressed because he had done so many bad things in his life and caused so much death and carnage, and he was so remorseful of the things he did that he was just suicidal. So, I mean, I can kind of relate to that because I've been through some tragedies in my life, and I've been through points in my life where, I've questioned my own worth and my own existence, and I've overcome those things just like he does throughout the story. He overcomes that. And he grows, even though he's such an old, being, he grows throughout the story. So in this particular chapter...
He's basically he raises his spirituality.
Exactly. He's been captured at this point in the story. This is chapter 27. He's been captured by, like, a really powerful and dangerous villain. He's kind of hanging in his dungeon by Silver, because he has nothing else to do except just dangle there. So he's contemplating why he wanted to commit suicide in the first place. So that's what I'm going to read right now.
Okay.
I dangled from the ceiling in my sad, lonely cell, waiting for what would happen next. Then my mind flowed to thoughts of a more serious nature. I have spent my entire existence seeking the truth, the absolute truth to the reason, the meaning, the undeniable purpose of why. I have tried to use logic to understand the chaos. I have tried to justify the wickedness with the rationale of survival. After 2,000 years of seeking the answers, I had finally found self-actualization, the unequated wisdom that can only be obtained with centuries of time and patience. Upon finding the resolution to my questions about sentient life, I found a great and miserable paradox, for I found that there is no meaning. There is no order or peace or great answer that comes with enlightenment. There is only a lethargic hum that makes each and every one of us endure until the next waking dusk. Then we rise and replay our night in a sad echo. On and on and on it goes for all of eternity like a revolving door that we cannot escape. I found this realization to be quite tragic, and therefore I consoled myself to end my diminutive existence and meet the sun with open arms. Nothing mattered. Everything I had done and not done, everything I had lived and learned and loved, everything I had lost and everything I had gained. It was not only about the bad I had done or the ugly or the flaws etched in my bones like evil lavished upon the earth. It was always about finding the answers I sought for so long, only to learn the ugly truth, the paradox, the great irony that nothing mattered, that I am but a grain of sand in an infinite field of space and time. My actions, my crimes, my deplorable behavior that had plagued me for thousands of years did not even matter to the cosmos. But like a flicker of light in a vast ocean of blackness, something was awakened deep inside me. That light made me realize the beautiful truth that eluded me even in my infinitesimal knowledge and wisdom, the indisputable axiom that confounded me even when I had reached the epitome of heightened understanding. The truth was so simple it nearly made me weep with ironic laughter. It was both transparent and vague, both uncomplicated and perplexing. The truth was it did not matter that nothing mattered. The truth was that you have one life to live, one existence to carry on. The truth was that we create our own reality, we create our own happiness, we create our own legacy. It does not matter what happened yesterday or what will happen tomorrow. What matters is what is happening this very moment. What matters is what is in your heart when you open your eyes and look upon the world. And if in your heart you find you are lacking, it is you who must fill it with what it needs. No one can do that for you. No one can create your happiness for you. If you are tragically depressed, numb, or fed up with your world, it is your responsibility to change your life into something that fills your heart to the brim. And I filled mine until it overflowed. I filled it with Sookie, I filled it with Eric, I filled it with the prospect of going to another world and making a new and better society. And it does not matter what you fill your heart with, but it is your responsibility to fill it. You are never too young or too old, too inferior or too superior, too scarred from tragedy or too green behind the ears. You need only one truth, and that truth is to own it because it's your life. Did any of this matter to the universe? Did any of this answer the meaning to life? No, but it mattered to me and it mattered to my life, and that was the true logic behind the chaos, so I have owned it. So that was that was just kind of an excerpt of him reflecting on why he wanted to commit suicide.
So he came to like his conscience to himself, asking the Creator for forgiveness, basically?
Well, he's just kind of contemplating what was the meaning, what was the purpose, what's the meaning to it all, what's the answer. Like, I'm 2,000 years old and I don't know the meaning to life. I mean, that's like the big question, right? And then finally, as he became so wise from so many years of walking the earth, he realized an ugly truth, that there is no meaning to life. There is no great answer to the purpose of everything. And so he became suicidal.
Now, the girl that goes to the studio, to the studio and goes through the rabbit hole, where is she at this point?
At this point, I can't really say because I would give too much away in the story, and I really want you to cry if you read it.
Okay, that's fair.
Let's just say she's not anywhere around right now. She's somewhere else.
Incognito?
Yeah, and so he's been captured by this great and all-powerful... He's basically the oldest vampire on Earth. He's been captured by him, and for a reason that you will find out, this plot to this story is very, very deep and thick on so many levels. There's so much going on, and there's so many characters and everything.
And so now, where you're at with how many chapters and 160,000 words, you're almost ready to bring it to the end, finish it?
Yes.
Is that correct?
I recently finished the last story arc, and I'm working on the transition chapters into the next story arc, which are really hot and steamy. So, I mean,
this is good stuff, guys.
After all the hell I put the readers through in the last story arc with this character getting captured and all the torture and things like that went on, I thought they deserved, some relaxing chapters.
So for the guys, you can imagine eye candy, huh?
Yeah. So there's some really hot and steamy chapters that go on for like the last 4 or 5 chapters, and then it's kind of easing into the next story arc, which has been hinting. The characters were introduced like in the second story arc, and they were part of this. They were minor players in this story arc, and so now they're becoming major players in the last story arc, which will finally end the story. And I expect maybe 7 or 8 more chapters. It just depends. Sometimes ideas strike me though, and I come up with new things. And
your blog helps you carry on.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to get, I do this for free. I mean, these stories is for practice. It's for practice so I can get good, and I am writing original stories too. I have like 4 or 5 of them going. that I don't publish free to the public because I would like to send them to a literary agent when I finish them. But this story is like, you'll notice too when I read it, I mean the first chapter is good, but you'll notice as the story progresses over the 9 months I've been writing it, how much better the writing gets. And that's just like, as a writer, if you want to be a writer, just practice.
To go into a journeyman, you gotta be an apprentice.
Exactly. So yeah, I expect it to be ending soon. And it's really nice, like I was saying, it's free. I do it for free, so it's nice when I get those reviews from readers that appreciate the story. Every now and then I do get a really bad review, by the way, and I did get a bad one.
That helps in essence to think why they are writing that review, or to why they are giving you that constructive criticism.
Well, it's not always constructive. I've got one bad review on this story, and that's pretty amazing because I know other authors who write who get lots of bad reviews. I got one bad review. It was a flame. It was done by a guest reviewer. They basically said I had a disgusting story, and I do. It's a disgusting freaking story. I mean, there's lots of explicit scenes. There's lots of sexual explicit scenes in this. There is man-on-man scenes in this, you know. I mean, it's not all about that.
It's not about all fairy tales and good stuff. It goes to the world of soft porn.
Well, you have to think about it. If you're a vampire and you're 1,000 years old or 2,000 years old, you are probably going to experiment at some point in your life with the same sex.
Yeah. Okay.
So
it has homosexual tendencies.
Yeah. So you're going to do it all throughout your existence.
You're going to go around the world.
Exactly. So, I mean, that was
And that was the part that got criticized negative?
Yeah, because, well, the main thing that some people don't like about this story, because my readers are women, what they don't like is she's in a relationship with two men together. The three of them together. It's a devil's threesome, you know, like two horns.
Someone made a comment. Anyone else think this sounds like Twilight mixed with True Blood? That was a comment. Does that any effect to you?
What? They asked if it sounds like Twilight.
They posted in chat. Does anyone else think this sounds like Twilight mixed with True Blood?
Okay, my vampires do not sparkle.
There you go, Zippy. They do not sparkle. They just shine.
They do not sparkle. This is a True Blood fanfic. So it is an offshoot story of True Blood. It involves the characters from True Blood, plus a bunch of characters I made up.
Thanks for clarifying. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I know that...
yeah, I mean, always new readers are a good thing. Like, one of my editor for this story, I mean, she was originally a reader. She used to edit PR stuff for a company. So, I put out on one of my posts, on one of my chapter updates, that I was looking for... She's been editing this story since like chapter 10, and I became like really good friends with her.
Do you do anything for her, like send her something, some you know, just to, you know what I'm saying? Do you kind of like send her a gift or anything?
I did send her a while back. I sent her because she's really crafty and she makes a lot of stuff. So I have like this whole box full of like cloth, like velvet and things like that. So I sent all that to her. She lives in Canada, and so I did send her that. I sent her that.
Was she thrilled? Was she compliant?
Yeah, she liked it a lot.
That's cool. So you're on a good relation with what would you call her? A editor or?
I call her an editor, but in the trade, most people call them beta readers. But I like to be more professional.
They go and proofread it.
Yeah, I call her an editor because she really does so much, like a real editor does. You know.
I see. Oh, that's so beautiful. And you met her where? In your blog?
I met her when on my chapter update, I put out that I was looking for someone who could help me edit my work. Mm-hmm. And so she messaged me and said that, you know, she'd be happy to help, that she's helped other people with that before. And so she's been editing it since December.
Right on. That's good enthusiasm. When you get a little mentor, or basically I call them, come in, that it feels good, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's just good for the head.
Yeah, and I can send her my chapters, and she reads them before I publish them to the public, and so she can give me her opinion. And she's not the only one. I have other people who help me, who will read
that's so cool.
read my chapters before I send them out, so they can be like, "Hey, this really sucks." They've never told me that before, but I hope they would if it did. If it wasn't any good, that they would say, "Hey, you need to redo this" or something. But that's why I have them read it ahead of time, so I can kind of gauge the reactions and see what they think.
Okay. What else would you like to let the listeners know? I'm repost the link.
The blog link is AmericanAndroidblog.wordpress.com, and you can find all 4 of my stories that I'm currently writing on that blog. AmericanAndroidblog.wordpress.com. You got it.
I got it. So, listeners, this is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. We are listener supported. This is Gerber, and I'm hosting a special tonight. A guest and friend of Revolution Radio for many years, Alicia, known as American Android as her writing name.
And it's funny because I had that name because of my truther background.
Uh-huh.
Because, you think of sheeple.
Yes.
So it's kind of like Android, like everybody's an Android, so I'm an American Android.
No. Yeah, I caught. That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. I like that title.
You know what? There's a poem I wrote that I would like to read that I think your listeners would really love, that has to do with something that they're interested in. If you would like me to read it, it's not very
Sure,
long.
I would.
It's
You
called A Peon's Poem. I really love this Uncle Sam. I love this wonderful, dreamy land. The news on TV told me I matter. Give me a hamburger so I can get fatter. I bend over to get screwed up the... Can't say that on the radio. I've been brainwashed since I was a lass. Social engineering is okay by me. I'm conditioned to think I'm free. My planet's future concerns me not. I just plug my ears and fill my pot. I am a wage slave, I do not care. I really think that it's quite fair. Spend my money, buy more stuff. I bet up economic collapse is just a bluff. I sweat and I grind and I bleed. I will always follow but never lead. We are the only species that pay to live. The government is my friend, they always give. Chemtrails to cool the earth, what is that? I don't really care, step on my face like a mat. It feels so good, do it again please. I would like some wine with my cheese. They own all the money and power on the planet. Shut up, I'm watching Dancing with the Stars, damn it. The banksters, that's not really a concern. I'ma just go give 'em all the money I earn. You think they're little old men with no worth. They own you and me and every nation on earth. 7 billion people on the one little blue ball. A new world order to control us all. God said, go forth and be fruitful. Mission accomplished, to be truthful. They can't control us now, they're really spending. They want the crumble and they want the ending. I don't want to know, please be quiet, be silent. It's so they can be your savior and be your tyrant. I am the ultimate American android. A robot, a sheeple, a zombie with a hemorrhoid. Mainstream media gives me all the truth I need. I'm gonna go lay down so these vampires can feed.
That's great. I like that. I want to hear it again.
And then at the end, I have a little quote from Benjamin Franklin that says, if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and what will never be. Benjamin Franklin.
That's cool, too. If you have any questions or you want to call in and talk, you're more than welcome. I'll give you the number. It's 702-605-4436 if you'd like to call in. I know Alicia's not going to stay too much longer, and I'm going to rattle on and try a round table. If there's anybody enthused, if not, I'll drop it and we'll just go to dead air. But I'm trying to keep it live tonight on a Saturday night, and that's what the skinny is. So I appreciate, Alicia, I hope the listeners out there give you a little more enthusiasm and rattle your chain and shake that booty. I'm just kidding. And dance away.
Right. Well, I enjoyed coming on. Thank you for having me. It's been a long, long time since I've been on the radio, so it's kind of brings back nostalgic memories for me.
I hear you, and I appreciate you too. You've got a lovely voice. You ought to sing this as an opera.
Oh my gosh, I sound like I have a plugged up nose, and I'm like one of those mouth breathers that breathe.
That's me.
That call in the middle of the night like a psycho.
All right. Alicia, thank you. And, well, just keep your toes crossed and your legs crossed.
All right, I will. Well, thank you.
That was my ex used to say, Jared, cross them legs. I had to go somewhere else. Just kidding. All right, so thanks again. Listeners, I hope you liked that. That was American Android. And one more time before you go, give out that blog link, please, all over the air. Alicia?
My blog is American Android Blog at .wordpress.com.
Keith, Arizona. Keith, are you here?
Yes, I am. Hey, Jared, it's great to hear your voice, my friend.
I know, long time no see.
Yeah.
Were you listening in?
Yes, I was.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,